Hey, it's Thomas 11 with Unique Monster Lore, a series where I look into the backstories of UMs across the Xenoblade games. Today I'm looking at two rivals found on opposite sides of the old industrial district in Mor Ardain. This is the lore of Judicial Kollin and Decapitator Marvin. The story of these two begins with the old industrial district itself. Stretching across the collar to the mid-shoulder of the Titan is this abandoned complex of geothermal mining, production, and workers' facilities. Given that in addition to industrial production and offices, there's a canteen, hospital wing, and living quarters all connected, it would suggest that this was something akin to a company town where all the workers and their families lived inside the complex where they worked. It was abandoned at some point due to the rising temperatures in Mor Ardain pushing the populace out further on the shoulders away from the heat. We see the modern geothermal mining in another facility. I couldn't find any indication from NPC dialogue to suggest when exactly the old industrial district became abandoned, but from the condition it's in, I would guess at least 70 years or more. In the time since, it's become home to wild monsters and criminal operations like the Loan Sharks in Percival's Quest and the rebel organization Lindworm, but most relevant to the topic today, Ignas. At the north end of the old industrial district, overlooking the Chainsaw Wastes, is the old city of Tedim, presumably where the workers' homes were once located. This abandoned city and adjacent pipe district is overrun now with a large group of Ignas, the demi-human race of lizardmen that would seem to be just below the level of intelligence as Turkin. They aren't known to speak, but are well organized. And stationed in an office at the end of this area and acting as a boss of the dungeon that is the old industrial district is their chief, Decapitator Marvin. The scouts outside will alert Marvin to attack should they spot you. He wields a club made of rusty gears and a shield taken from the shell of a crustip, giving him a defense of 25% and small front-facing block rate of 5%. He has a dangerous combo of Dragon Gas to inflict break and Dragon Bash to topple, which he will only use if the target is broken. But most significant is his Enrage that increases his defense and increases his damage for each ally in battle. Given that he has one Igna inside the office with him and the scout will alert those outside as well, this will make him incredibly deadly if his allies aren't quickly dealt with first. This includes a fail symbol just outside, which will increase the damage of every Igna in the area from the start of the battle. Alone, Marvin isn't a huge threat, but with the symbol and his small army to assist him, he's one of the more dangerous unique monsters in Xenoblade 2 for his level. Before we get to more of Marvin's story though, we need to go to the south end of the industrial district. Found at the end of Winding Halls is Delize's infirmary, what once would have been used for the sick or injured workers. Once you've obtained the key elsewhere in the dungeon, you can unlock the door to find what could be considered the mini-boss, Judicial Kollin. He's more of the mini-boss since he's notably easier than Marvin, even though his placement behind a key feels more main-boss-esque. Locked inside the infirmary for an unknown amount of time, Kollin is a dual-blade wielding Igna that uses Dragon Gas like Marvin and the rest of their kind, and Dragon Rush, a more powerful art that lacks topple. He also has an Enrage that increases damage for each ally like Marvin does, but all he has are a few Vangs to help him, making it much less of a concern since these can be defeated well before he enrages, and there's no symbol buffs to worry about either. So what's the relation here between these two monsters? Going off of their names, I suspect that Kollin was the previous chief of the Igna tribe. There was an incident where Marvin removed some heads of other Ignas, and Kollin attempted to subdue and detain Marvin. But Marvin had the advantage in battle, with better defenses, more HP, attacks with lower cooldowns, and a topple combo. He defeated Kollin and took over as leader himself. Marvin's instinct was probably to decapitate Kollin, but Kollin was well liked as a leader, and to ensure a more accepting army, he instead locked Kollin away as far from their territory as possible on the other end of the old industrial district. Wasting away in his cell that was once a human infirmary, Kollin befriended the bats and I guess subsisted on insects. That's all that there really seems to be to eat there, but also maybe he ate some of his bat friends too. Alternative theory is that Kollin was spared because they were rivals with romantic tension that regularly challenge each other, and Marvin could never consider getting rid of him permanently. In the end though, they were both still violent lizard men, so we would eventually exterminate them both. Unlocking the door probably gave Kollin a hope at escaping and retaking Tedim for himself, but that was quickly shattered and he never got the chance. For some added trivia, these two have opposing elements when enraged. Marvin is Earth element and Kollin is electric, but neither has any element before enraging. As for battle advice when taking them on right away, Judicial Kollin is pretty straightforward. Just defeat the Vangs before he enrages. For Decapitator Marvin, it can be tricky. You want to clear as many nearby Ignas and especially the fail symbol before you take on Marvin. So what you can do is focus down the symbol, then run to the nearby ladder to de-aggro. Repeat this until you can face Marvin without more than a couple allies by his side. Tell me what you think though. Were Marvin and Kollin former friends, rivals, or enemies? And were they romantically involved or not? Tell me in the comments. A couple other things unrelated to the monsters that I'd like to just mention because there isn't enough on them for a full video, but the implications of the old industrial district being a company town type of city could also suggest that the current geothermal plant functions the same way with workers and their families living in it. Given that we only know of one other settlement on Mor Ardain, being the other shoulder with a city we never visit, this could explain where some more of the populace is. The other thing is that Mor Ardain is an empire, but we only know of them owning Gormott, and they were called an empire before ever taking Gormott. This means they must own some other smaller titans that we just never hear about because they aren't important to any of the main or subplots. The map of Alrest also has some titans on it that are never seen in the game and don't have names over them in Alrestian text on the map to indicate being a nation like the clearly identifiable titans do, so these could include other Ardanian territories. Anyway, the old industrial district is one of the more interesting areas to look at in Xenoblade 2 because of its history as an abandoned steampunk worker complex, and how it's designed like a 3D Zelda dungeon, with different rooms you can only access from going around the long way to the other side, door keys, and having bosses with suggestions of a deeper story but nothing concrete. Same kind of deal as the Tantal Pillars dungeon style section, ending in the brothers Elliot and Melvin, which was one of the first episodes of Unique Monster Lore that I did. If you want to see that episode on Elliot and Melvin, or any of the others, check out the playlist that'll be up on the left of all my Unique Monster Lore theories. And if you have anything more to add to the story of the old industrial district and its bosses, let me know in the comments. I'll be starting another series soon as an extension of this, covering not only tyrants, but the monster species in Xenoblade X in general, because they all come with some lore already in the enemy index. That should start either end of this month or early next month. But that's all, so see you next time.